Good evening.
Hello, Jackie. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Great, great. Faithful Father, I see you already. We should have had you on tonight with us.
Yes, actually. Absolutely.
Listen, I think we're gonna get started. We have people who've been waiting in the cuts ready for us to get started, so I don't want to keep them waiting. And those who will get on a little bit later, they'll catch up with us. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, welcome to another one of our live streams. It's called Let's Talk About It. And Let's Talk About It is sponsored by Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation that's located here in Atlanta, Georgia. And the purpose of these live streams is really to educate the general community about issues affecting children. And if you can, there are plenty of issues. My name is Dr. Willie Miles. I am the president of the foundation. And Jackie?
Hello, I am Jacqueline Hampton Clements, community activist and educator.
Hey, great. Our topic tonight is about single males raising children. Are there any? But before I get into that, I do want to remind our followers to please, we have our t-shirts that are still on sale. Please grab those, join our campaign to save a generation. Those funds are used basically to make sure that we're able to have funding for our community mini grants. So if you want to get one of those t-shirts, get one of those. And folks, we're non-discriminatory. We have one that says, that I am Black, and we have one that says they are Black, their lives matter. So for any non-Black person, you can support us and wear that shirt proudly. And you have to say it in the dark that my friends are Black. And for Black folk who wants to get them, or any others, you need to get them just to support us and to be proud of who you are. Also, we also are asking our followers to share with your companies to support us. It's the end of the year, and many of y'all got a whole lot of money you want to give away because you don't want to pay taxes on it. Yeah, I know that already. So, hey, send some of that money our way. Send it to Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation. Guess what? It's kind of interesting. You give it to us, and you'll get it right back. You give it to us, and you'll get it right back. So we're very happy about that. Hey, Jackie, are there any other announcements, anything that's happening that you want to talk about?
No, not at this time. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get started. The topic. Before I begin, I said it's kind of amazing. On the night we're talking about men, how about I'm not feeling well? In Atlanta, it's kind of cold here, folks. It's like 39 degrees. It got up to 50 earlier today, but this morning it was like 39. And I said, good Lord, it's cold here. So I'm acting like it's snowing. I got my little sweater on and zipped all up like I'm freezing, right?
Right.
But I'm an old man, so I get kind of cold. Let's dive into this conversation. Jackie, it's going to be very exciting, I think, about single males raising children. Are there any? I was going to say any. Are there any? And the answer to that is a resounding yes.
Yes.
A resounding yes.
Yes.
And it's kind of amazing.
Quite a few, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? You want to share some of that?
I was very surprised by the numbers and the statistics.
Why don't you go ahead and share it with us?
Yeah, over 25 million children today, right now, are being raised. Well, this is with no father in the home. And then 2.6 million, to be exact, raising children, single fathers. So you've got 2.6 million. I don't think anybody would expect that number to be that high. Single fathers. And of course, we can discuss the many different ways that they became single fathers. But that is a pretty big number, and I was surprised to see that.
But what's amazing? I'm sorry, go on.
And then some of those were adoptions. In the majority of cases, 68% married couples adopted from foster care. And then it was followed by single females. But then people may be surprised to know that single men actually also adopt.
Now let's talk about some of this. You gave us 4 categories, a mouthful, and I don't want to go just run through this here because it's kind of amazing. When we talk about men, Father's Day, we get a pair of socks, mom gets a house. We talk about fatherhood, she wants to run through all this data and say we're finished. We're gonna slow this thing down.
What's not
because yeah, you try to run through it because it's men's night. You guys will get your opportunity next week. You get your opportunity next week when we talk about women. All right.
Okay, thank you.
And women and raising children. So tonight,
thank you.
Give us a little applause. Give us a little applause. 2.6 million to be exact are raising children. 2.6 million single men are raising children. And Jackie, I can just hear somebody in the background saying, well, they also be raising them. Yeah, followers, we're not even going there. Let's talk. I
was having a conversation.
Oh, he got him because he don't want to pay child support. let's not go there. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. But at this point, let's talk about that they are there, that they
Yeah,
are.
and you know what it is, Dr. Miles,
Mhm,
seriously. We really do deny men very often,
mhm,
especially in society, the parental instincts.
mhm.
There are men who want to be dads, right? There are men who are single fathers who would never plan to be single fathers, but they, you know, and I don't even want to use the term step up to the plate because
Mhm.
they just accept the responsibility, as do, of course, women, but as they should. And so that really is, we're making jokes a little bit, but that's an issue. Just how we are surprised that there are single dads and how many they are.
Well, yeah, and again, not just single dads, but single dads raising their children. Because I think there are plenty of single dads out there, and the woman is still raising the child. I think the most significant thing is that these men have their children for whatever reason, and I don't. And I think you kind of clarify that stepping up to the plate. Well, it's not a matter of them, not stepping up to the plate. Some of them are kind of forced into it. Wife dies.
Mm-hmm.
Some are into it. They get a divorce, and the wife says, "Okay, since you want to leave me, you take all the children."
Right. People
Yeah,
don't, that's another thing that's not acknowledged. Sometimes it's the woman who leaves
right.
with the
But
husband and the children.
but Jackie, what I want people to know, and you kind of said it, I want them to know so we can change the narrative
Mm-hmm.
that there are men who are raising their children who are single.
Mm-hmm.
Because we only often hear about those who are not doing what they should be doing.
That's
We
it.
only hear about fatherlessness. We only hear about
Yes.
all the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you really even delve into the men who are adopting, because that's a silent group. The single men who are adopting, a silent group. And I was
Mm-hmm.
I was sharing with our local officials here that we need to start acknowledging those men. And, well, if you acknowledge men, you got to acknowledge women. Well, no, it's sort of a given. Women do that because of their affect. They do it because they're
Well,
nurturers.
and there are a lot of causes that support single women, let's face it.
Right.
That, because one of the things that I wrote down about this topic is, are they invisible? Are single
Yep.
fathers invisible? And as a result of being invisible, we're not only not talking about what their needs might be, we're probably not addressing them as a society.
Jackie, you hit it dead on point. It is a societal issue. It is a societal issue, whereas men are not celebrated. Men are not, and most certainly
Not as
fathers are not.
fathers.
And fathers are not celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting, even in the two-parent household, usually the men are not celebrated. They're like, they're there. And I'm not talking about your house, I'm talking about when you look at it more generally. They're not
No,
celebrated.
no, it's a point. It's
Yeah.
a valid point.
Yeah. They're looked as well, whatever you're doing, you're supposed to do it. And
Right.
don't fuss about it now because you the man, And
Back to some of the things we talked about when we talked about raising young men.
right.
Okay, right. Those stereotypes that are there and how they affect you later in life.
Right.
So if you're there, oh, it's just a given, you're supposed to. But of course, Mother's Day is a really big deal in most settings, whereas Father's Day is not as much. So now you take the fact that you have someone who is raising children on their own, and probably, like you said, more often than not, that's not by choice, but it's a reality, and we often talk about, the systems that support women. Who do you get to babysit when you're a single dad?
Yeah.
What do you do about raising your female, your daughter?
But Jackie, let's sort of like frame that, because women innately and have been taught how to care and nurture. Men have not. So when you say like, who you gonna leave the child with? And I'm just saying, his second nature is everybody loves children, so I can leave him with.
Well, I mean, again, now this is from a female perspective.
Right.
So when we get babysitters, I've not been a single mother, but just even as a a married mom, the babysitters might be my friends. They may be, their godmothers and their aunts. So here's a single male, right, raising children. Does he leave them with, his basketball hoops buddy? Does he leave his children with, other single men?
Right,
exactly. And are there different issues associated with that?
Yeah, there are different issues, and there are many stereotypes associated with it. But you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna take them to mama's house. That's what he's gonna do, and mama gonna keep them. And so I think what we're talking about is that we're finding that men who raise children need the same support that women who raise children need. Are you with me? Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to me, though, when you talk about men raising children, and when if you start telling women about it, you're talking to women about men raising children. He should be. He ain't did nothing else. Let him suffer. But if he suffers, who's really suffering?
Right, the child.
If he's suffering, who's really suffering? The child. And oftentimes we take these feelings out on the men. We take these feelings out. But I want to give that number again, that number of men who are raising their children, 2.6 million. And I can hear you saying, well, why are y'all so excited about that? There are more women. We acknowledge that, folk. But Jackie used the word, and I'm going to use it again. I'm going to coin it. But the men who are doing this, folk, are invisible.
Right.
They're invisible.
And therein lies the problem, because, this is an organization about children. And so we need to make sure that we're seeing children everywhere. And if we're missing 2.6 million households because they're led by men, and that's something we're not used to, and we're catering, our services, our conversation to either couples or single women, again, there's a void there. And that's why this conversation is important.
And that's why I think also it's important that the community sort of embrace these men. Because think about this, first of all, Jackie, you and I have talked at length about, how girls are raised, and girls are raised to cook and clean and all that kind of stuff. And Jawanza Kanjufu says that girls are raised and boys are loved. And which means that all the skills that it takes to raise a child, oftentimes he didn't get it.
Right.
He better not go to the home living corner because he'll be called a sissy. So he ain't gonna learn how to play with the brooms.
Right.
Are you with me?
Can't teach him how to play with the dolls.
Right. So all these things that he is dealing with, it's like he doesn't know. I do believe that not all women, but at least some women have an idea of how to raise their children, and dealing with discipline. They're not going to be perfect, you know what I'm saying? But they have some idea about it. Whereas men, because we've not been taught it, we're kind of like on page 1, on page 2, and the child on page 1.
And very often we have not even seen that, those dynamics play out in 2-parent households.
Yeah.
So again, the men are not being exposed to and are not seeing these examples, and can find themselves somewhat clueless. And so here you are, you're single male, right? You're looking for information about discipline. Where do you go exactly? Right? Because again, those support systems aren't really out there. I'd be interested to know what sort of support systems, the municipalities offer for single dads. Have you heard of any, Dr. Mike?
They don't, but there are some national ones like Fatherhood International and Fatherhood Initiatives. There are a few, because we're just beginning to realize that men exist and men are dads, and that men need support. But you know what's sort of like mind-blowing? Don't fall out your chair. Well, single fathers need the same kind of support that single women need.
Like, duh. Right?
They need the same kind of. They need the same kind of supports.
Because what people also don't get, they're having the same experience. Children are 24 hours.
Right.
They're not part-time. And so again, there's so many systems set up for women that women even do the sharing. Okay, you take them this weekend and I'll take them. But again, men don't have that. So I think sometimes, probably more than we realize, it's actually tougher to be a single dad than to be a single mom.
Yeah.
And I know there are a few people who will probably really want to jump on me for saying that, but it's just kind of obvious.
Well, the thing about it, we don't want to even sound like sexist. When we're not trying to compare men to women. We're simply saying that single fathers should have support. And I can hear somebody say, well, he should have got it himself then. But I want to move us from that narrative of women are single mothers against single men, because the whole idea is about how all this affects children. That's what it's really about, how all of this affects children. So men need support just like women need support. And Jackie, I'm using your word again, that men who do this are invisible. And women, I want to tell y'all something. We're a little bit more sensitive than y'all think we are, but we're also very astute. We can tell when people think that the women are better at stuff. That kind of like makes us not feel too good. Yeah,
Truth be told, in our society, Dr. Miles,
yeah,
that it's kind of like systemic racism. It's there.
yeah,
That preconceived notion, that underlying, it's like in the fiber that
right,
women are, our parents, and it's an anomaly for men. That's why
right.
even when you see them doing, like, oh, you're so good, you're raising your kids.
And all he doing is holding a child's hand.
Hello.
he, he is not
Spending
doing
time, oh, don't spend time with your child and not have people just be completely shocked. What? By yourself? Like,
anything.
you sure? Are you okay? Do you feel all right? Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
versus, it's wonderful because he should be doing that. But it's even more phenomenal when men, I'm going to use the word again, and you didn't apologize for it, but you said, I don't mean it. Like, step up to the plate. That men, when it comes to their children, they take the responsibility. Like, for instance, my thought would be, if I was a dad and my children were going into foster care because of something my girlfriend or wife did, as their dad, my kids are not going foster care. Are, are, you,
So you're opening a real
are,
big
are,
can
are
there.
you with me?
Yes.
But there are many men who have the capability to take care of their children, who allow their kids to go into foster care, and will tolerate visits versus being solely responsible for that
Responsible
child.
for. Mm-hmm.
So my comment is that you were solely responsible for getting them. You should be solely responsible for taking
We're
care of
taking care
them
of them.
in cases where they are placed out of home. Are you with me?
Right.
And
It
so
shouldn't even be allowed. Right.
exactly. So that 2.6 million can go up even higher. And I have some data for adoptions, but these are adoptions for of men who are not relatives to the kids. But I would love to see us somehow change the narrative and not have it be a surprise that men that men should be single dads, but it should be an expectation.
Right. And the comment from Faithful Father is a very good one as well. That men need to get better at voicing concerns and their need for help. And sometimes it is that pride, and perhaps that connects to what you're saying, Dr. Miles. If if men knew that when they do take that responsibility from a mother that is not able to care for it, that they would have help and that they
But
could reach out for help, then perhaps they'd be more comfortable not allowing the child to go into, foster and
yeah,
other care scenarios.
but anyways, yeah, I don't think it's pride. I think it is perceived weakness.
Mm,
It is, you think I'm weak. So therefore, I'm not going to tell you, guess what? I'm about to pull my hair out. You're saying got none. So I really think that for the dads who are the single dads, what they should do is get out that thing that says you're weak, but you need help. And if you need
right.
help, guess what? You need help. And you
And
should,
again, that's another societal quote unquote
right.
norm where men don't like to ask for help.
Yeah.
And you won't raise children without asking for help.
Yeah.
Let's
You know,
acknowledge that.
let's talk about the reason some dads end up being um, single parents. Now, I do want to disclose, I'm not sure you all know, but I am a single male who adopted 3 males out of foster care. And they were teenagers. They're now grown men. I think I mentioned this before, Jackie. People oftentimes talk about, oh my God, they made it. I said, no, I made it.
Right.
Because it's very difficult. See, men and women are made differently.
Totally.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Women are made differently than men, and women, and I'll just say y'all the strongest sex. I have no doubt about it. Y'all can take anything. I've been on pull my hair. Well, I have pulled my hair out. You say I ain't got none. So, but the point is that you all are more compassionate. You're not so quick to anger. You're not you don't have as much testosterone as we have. So we're always ready to fight
Hmm.
versus ready to reconcile. Are you with
Right.
me?
And again, very often it's what we have seen growing up.
Yeah.
Again, we're a very patriarchal society in some ways. When it comes to the home and children, there's just this automatic association with women and mothering. And so it really leaves the dads out. Like
Yeah.
even when they don't want to be left out, they're just kind of automatically left out of the equation.
You know, years ago, I did a group session at a church with men, and it was about children. And it was a survey I gave them. I think it was like 10 questions on it. And Jackie, what was interesting, the man's greatest fear, and I was floored. About 50 men, the male's greatest fear was how to be a good husband, and the second one was how to be a good parent, not for his children, but for the daughter.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just afraid.
Yeah. I think again there is so much that goes unsaid, and I think Faithful Fathers is making this point as well. There's just a lot that goes unsaid
Hmm.
about being a father,
Yeah.
single or otherwise, and certainly if you're single, because again that's an invisible group. Because what man raises his own children by himself? People
Hmm.
would honestly probably think the number was zero or close to it.
Yeah.
Again, not the 2.6 million that we're looking at here. And I've got some other statistics that
Hmm.
talk about the number of single men. 2019, there were about 1.5 million Black families with single fathers living in the United States. Then an increase that was an increase from 1990 when there was only 472,000. So
Wow.
the number almost doubled, like of single fathers. And it said, of course, more often than not, this happens as a result of divorce, separation, or death of the mother. Now, even when we're talking about divorce, most people think when there's a divorce, kids go with the mom. Okay, so they're just all sort of scenarios that we're not being aware of, and then the challenges that go along with that for being a
Well,
man.
one thing, Jack, I like to share my experiences just a little bit. And I think I told you this before, that I became more sensitive to single women raising children. Because when you have three children, and many of these women have small children, of course, some of these single fathers got small children. But I tell the story that I started counting the steps I would take from the time I got up in the morning just to get them to the car to get them to school. Over 3,000 steps. That's
Right,
before they get to the car
right,
to get to school.
right.
And
Preparation.
then and then to get them up in the morning, to make sure the breakfast is done. I'm talking about men doing this now. And so, it looks easy when women are doing it, but sometimes we as men don't take a look at, well, fix me some too. Well, no, she got to fix for three children. What are you talking about? Get up and fix your own breakfast. Are you
Right,
with me? So,
right.
my point is, I started counting the steps. I said, this is crazy. Then to
And,
get
and
them
and
in the
simple
car.
things like getting kids dressed.
Yeah.
Hello.
Which I didn't have to get them dressed. I'm talking. Those are small kids. I'm talking about. But you're right, preparing for it. And let me just go through this little day, and then I'm gonna stop, and then we can discuss it, because
Mm-hmm,
women do it all the time to get
mm-hmm,
them to the school.
mm-hmm,
Three different schools. All right.
mm-hmm.
Then that's before I even come back to get ready to go to work. Then I drive back. By the time I get back, I get a call from the school. You need to come pick one of them up. And I mean, because he done did something he had no business doing. I ain't calling no
No,
names.
that's one of those. Oops, I can't hear you. Oh, my phone's going dead.
But
Yeah,
then,
we've seen
Jackie,
that.
I get to work, day goes fine. Of course, here I am now into an intense meeting at 4 o'clock. Forget I got children that need to be picked up from school. So here it is now, 5:30. And I'm saying, oh my God, the
I
children.
gotta go pick up the kids. Yeah.
Well, thank God I had to send somebody for them. But my point
Mm-hmm.
is that, so I understand this piece. But then, check when you get home, then from a male perspective now, I'm saying that women do this thing flawlessly. Y'all do it flawlessly. I applaud you. You
Looks
don't
that
even,
way. To your
you don't,
point, looks that way.
y'all even smile while you're doing it. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna pull myself together. So
Right.
then I get home, I gotta cook on Sundays to make sure that I don't cook every day in the week, right? So the time I
Right.
get home, they eat their food, they go to their rooms, watch TV or games, so forth. Rules are lights out by 9, no noise by 9 o'clock. By that time, we're in bed, right? Then the thing starts up all over again next morning. So I'm
Yep.
saying, when we see women do it, they say, that's nothing. What are you talking about? You tired? Why are you so tired? You ain't did nothing.
Right. Happens
But
all
then
the
we do it,
time.
I'm about to fall
Because
out.
until you're doing it, Dr. Miles, you
Mhm.
don't see all the little steps. You see feeding as putting food on the table. You talk about how the food got there. And I don't mean just the cooking. Who did the grocery shopping? Right? Who peeled things that had to be peeled and cooked and all of this? There are a million steps to everything.
And all three children don't eat the same thing, do they? They don't like the same
Never,
thing. So
never.
you gotta mix. You can do some alternate meals, but some y'all say, if you don't eat it, you just be hungry. But the
Right.
point is that my point is that it's for men, it's like multitasking. It's like trying to be compassionate. It's like being nurturing, and that's way too much
Right.
for men.
And there are some just natural differences that we should not be afraid to acknowledge in that equation, and
Hmm.
whether those those natural differences are societal, because men and women are raised differently.
Right.
And so that learning curve is huge, and that's really not avoidable. Let's talk about combing your daughter's hair. You're talking about
Well,
getting them ready
thank.
for school. Okay, you got 3 daughters. Okay, most men don't grow up knowing how to comb little girls' hair. So
Until
that's
I get 3 bonnets to put on them.
I don't think that'll work for school.
Are
Not to mention, just the different styles, the products you need to comb, a little girl's hair, or even an older girl, or to help her self groom. Let's talk about makeup. You know,
but
um,
Jackie, before you go any further, let's back up just a little bit. So I ask you this question. So where do y'all learn that from? Where do y'all learn all that stuff from?
think about it, Dr. Miles. How often first of all, we play with dolls. Okay,
Okay.
as
And
as as babies, as toddlers, at work.
and what does that
We play with
teach you?
dolls from day one.
What does that teach you? Playing with the dolls?
I mean, it teaches you how to care for a child. You're changing diapers. You're nurturing. You're holding. You're rocking them to sleep. So honestly, by the time you're of age to be
Hold up
doing
there.
it as a parent,
Hold up. Work with me now. So if a boy is doing that in the home living area and playing with the doll and rocking, what do parents naturally think sometimes?
well, let's not say parents. Let's say, what do dads naturally think?
What do dads
Okay,
think?
and again, we're back to that grooming. So it's like, on the one hand, we're saying, okay, you shouldn't be surprised when there's a single father. On the other hand, we're saying society kind of is, because we do not raise our men to be fathers. And
Yeah.
you know what? This first time I'm hearing myself say that out loud, but it's true. We don't raise men to be fathers. We
You
don't,
know,
because
check.
we don't encourage them to be
Mhm.
nurtured. We certainly don't encourage them to play with dolls at an early age. And think about it, Dr. Miles, you would know this better than anyone. At what point do we actually encourage men to be thoughtful, considerate? I mean, I know we do in general, but kind of as a side note. So when would they learn sort of those soft skills that are so vital to being an everyday 24-hour parent?
Right. Jackie, I want to try this right here, and I'm not sure that he can do this. Last week he talked about he just got out the shower. So I think what I have to do, if I were to get faithful father on, because he's doing some great comments, I think
He is.
he could add to our discussion here. I think what has to happen, faithful father has to request to join me live. Then Jackie, when he finishes, you have to come back to request to join me live. I think that's how it works.
Okay, let's do that. And
So faithful,
also, I have I guess we would call him a guest here as well, who was a single father for a moment himself.
yes,
And
somebody there with
he can,
you?
yes,
Let's
and
put
he
him
can
on
come
then.
to pose those questions as well.
Let's put him on.
He wasn't prepared to be on screen, but he can certainly hear us and answer some questions. Or maybe
Okay.
when we come back, he'll be prepared.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so you go
you're
ahead and do single father, and I'm going to be right here.
let me ask if you can do it first of all. Single father, can you join us?
Sure.
He's talking about somebody on screen whose name is
Faithful father,
Faithful
can
Father.
you join us
It's one of our
the
listeners.
discussion?
Let's see if you can answer.
Well, he's not answering yet. I'm sure he's
Okay.
listening.
Well, why don't we
Um,
go to our guest, because he
yes.
was responding
Yeah.
to you.
Okay, great. So
Okay.
let's start posing some of the questions. Since you're one of my hosts, just start asking questions. Oh, you said you can. Faithful father. So why don't you request to join me live? I'll accept you. Jackie will go off and we'll talk to you for a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Miles, do you need to disconnect me first, or I don't know how that works?
Okay, faithful father, just request to join me live.
Faithful father request.
Okay.
Faithful Father is actually the name of one of the people in our chat box right here.
Okay. Okay. The way you do it is that you actually, like you ask to join us. It should say join us live. It's like when you first, you may have to log out and log back in.
I'm trying to hit some buttons myself to see where it is, to see if we can.
But we're talking about fathers raising their children, and we're trying to get some other perspectives. I think we have something going on here. Was it you, Jackie, or somebody else?
No, that was me. I was looking for, trying to help him locate the request to join.
All right. I think it's a log out, then log back in. But while we're waiting, Jackie, why don't we go and take your guests, like some questions? Like you can pose some of the questions.
Okay. What was the most difficult part for you about being a single father?
Getting by stereotypes, for instance, gender-based bathrooms. You're at a basketball game and you're there with your daughter, probably 10, 11 years old, and the question becomes, how does she go to the bathroom? Am I going to have some stranger take her to the bathroom?
Oh, that's a very good comment. That's one I didn't think about. How do you deal with those children being a single parent, the single male out in the public? For instance, you got a daughter who needs to go to the restroom. Normally, the wife or the girlfriend will go in the restroom with her to assure safety. But if you are a dad raising the child, what happens then? That's a very good question. As this one we have to actually deal with. And so the question is, do we wait till we get home or what? I mean,
you can't. You have a little
I never thought
child.
about that. But here's something, and dads who are single, Jackie, never think about that. When they go out, say, oh my gosh, I gotta go to the restroom. So what I gotta do? And especially when you're dealing with now same-sex restrooms.
Right.
Not same-sex, but gender-neutral
Right.
restrooms.
And now they do have, there are a lot of family restrooms, and I think it was out of that actual need and seeing that void.
That was a very good point, because we're talking about in the house. See, I keep mine in the house all the time, but the point is that you gotta go out. But it's not just going to the restroom room. It's about, would you let your female child be more ambitious, for lack of better words, than your son? Like, for instance, going to the restroom by himself.
Right. I mean, honestly, I think at some of the young ages, again, having conversation with this particular guest, you wouldn't let a 5-year-old girl or a 5-year-old boy go into the bathroom alone.
Right.
But a woman can take a 5-year-old boy into the ladies' room.
Exactly.
But a dad wouldn't want to take a 5-year-old girl into the men's room.
Right. So, and then asking a stranger, can you go in the restroom with the daughter? That's one of those things that is something we don't think about when we get outside. So that was a very
right.
Go on. I'm sorry.
What else were you going to add?
For instance, my daughter would watch football with me on Sundays because that's when everybody watches football. And turned out to be that daughter now works for the NFL.
Yeah. So again, could that have been influenced by, having a single dad and the time you spent with that single father? Because in this case, it was a lot of sports.
That is kind of amazing. And so that takes away the stereotype of men that says, if I'm raising my daughter, well, I ain't gonna make her look at sports because that's a man's thing. So in other words, in raising your children, you have to sometimes be gender neutral when you talk about raising them and exposure, right? Mm-hmm. So there is no female activity. There's no male activity. It is just people activity.
And it was bonding time. Let's keep that in mind. This was bonding.
And out of bonding time, the person became wealthy at the NFL. The point is that we have to think outside of the box. Mm-hmm. And as men raising children, we have to also be very cautious about our own beliefs.
Right.
Our own beliefs.
Really do. Right.
Our own beliefs. So
next question, while we wait on Faithful Dad to get on. Did you, and you mentioned this a little bit, did you feel that the services that were available to you as a single father, or that there weren't many services available to you as a single dad? Like, Were there things you recall needing or places where you had to get help and you found it difficult?
PTA meetings.
Okay.
The PTA has a fundraiser.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the father bring to the fundraiser? I'll bring sodas. Because
Okay.
I'm sure I'm not putting forth Sunday afternoon dinner.
Right. You're not going to bake cookies and cupcakes.
Right. So the other people on this committee determines that they'll bail out the single father or have him bring the sodas. Can't mess that up too bad.
So I see what he's saying. He's saying that a single mother brings some cupcakes, but the daddy brings some cups.
Right. In other words, nobody was asking the single dads to cook.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are very important things to think about. And as he said that, I thought about what I used to do. I used to bring Gatorade and things that were prepared. I ain't bring no cupcakes and no sandwiches because
And let's keep in mind now, for the child, the item that your parent brought, like, kind of gave you ranking. Like, oh, we brought, the cake, or we
Right.
brought cupcakes. So, you with dad now, and it's just the cups. Cups aren't very popular to kids.
look, doing the cupcakes, but forgot to put the cakes in the cups.
Right.
I forgot. But
Yeah.
those are things that men just would not think about. I mean, and we'd be in a quandary trying to figure out, what do I bring? But Jackie, not only that, but historically, PTA meetings are women-led.
Oh, totally.
And so it's then like, how do I feel being in that midst? I'm the only male usually.
You're a stranger. You're a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
You're in an unfamiliar territory for you and the others who are there.
Well, Faithful Father said we're forgetting how to use our brains. We're not taught how to use our brains.
Not in that role.
Not,
I mean, honestly, you and I have quite a few years in the field of education.
right.
And how many times have we run into, parenting classes that target fathers or single fathers or any father?
Right.
How often have, we said, how many classes have you seen to teach dads how to do hair?
Right. It's kind
I
of
haven't seen
amazing.
any.
For those who are just coming on with us, my name is Dr. Willie Miles. I'm the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children Foundation. I'm just happy to have Jackie Clements Hampton here with us, who is just well-rounded in all areas, and she adds such value to our show. And tonight's discussion is about single dads who are raising children. And the question was, are there any? And Jackie, how many single dads are raising children?
Well, at least 2.6 million, Dr. Miles. And keep in mind, these are probably not the latest numbers. And we did say earlier that there was a double from 1990 to 2019, where it used to be about 472,000, went to 1.5 million. And here we are now at 2.6 million. So that's telling us that the numbers are increasing, which means the need to have these conversations and to provide services for these single fathers is going to increase as well.
You know what's amazing to me though is that we talked about norms, right? And it's kind of interesting that there's an expectation for women to raise and nurture children, right? Expectation. Yes. But guess what? My thought is that, well, since the child came out of you, and God knows that you're the strongest sex, because I couldn't even imagine thinking about giving birth.
I'm afraid of what you're about to say.
I'm not going to say it.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it is, right? The child came from you. Let's face it. You already had the child 9 months before it got here. So you're good. I'm going to go over here and get out your way. You're good. That's how we look at it. But, we have to bring this in here, because it did mention that one of the ways that fathers become single is by the death of mothers. And there are, women dying in birth, especially in the African-American community, is, that's also a number that would probably surprise many people. It is a concern. But so you have fathers who are, single dads, like from birth.
Right.
And, that you don't have time to consider anything else. So,
well, Jackie, I sort of want to give a shout out to a young man from Sierra Leone who just signed on with us, and he's an artist there. So I want y'all to know we're reaching all the way to Sierra Leone, folks. So, Wiz, thank you for joining us tonight. I want to
drop this bomb as soon as you're ready about this. We haven't touched this topic yet when it comes to single dad, but I think it's going to be interesting. And
all right, let's do it. Let's drop it.
Single fathers dating.
single fathers dating.
Dating. Are they allowed to date? Because, there's a lot of issues around women. Are single
Well,
fathers allowed to date?
we know the thing. The question is not. You can ask them that question. It's not really allowed to date. It's do they choose to, and can they? I think the same thing is applicable to women. The question is not can they date. It's that do they choose to? Because some people raising children choose to be sacrificial, and I ain't talking about. Watching who they bring around their children, in other words.
Right. Well, that's the big issue. And,
Mm.
just keeping this real now,
Yeah.
when you're for single mothers, sometimes, maybe more often than not, the concern about dating is that you're bringing a man around your children. And there's some stereotypes about that, certainly if you're raising daughters. And there's also, statistics that support those stereotypes and those fears. Okay, so a man would just be bringing another woman around his children. And so the question is, do we see that the same way? Do they have to have the same concerns? Do they have the same concerns and worry? There is always the issue of, am I bringing them around too soon? But there's also the issue of, should I be bringing them around at all?
That really does, you dropped a bomb on me, because that is really an issue that one has to face. And the whole thing really is about balance. It's about balance. And unfortunately, a small percentage of women who've dated who brought men into their homes, they didn't just bring them in, they allowed them to stay.
Exactly.
And in some cases, situations did occur with teen girls.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and the question is, if a male is a single parent, if he brought a female around his teen son,
and let's say prematurely.
Yeah, I'm going to say, guess what? The same thing could possibly happen. But do we think about it that way? The answer is
no,
because men are always the predators.
Right. Men are seen as more predators than women, for sure.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, I mean, in my personal situation, I dated a single father since married him, but and so there was always concern as to when I would meet his daughter. If I would meet his daughter. So certainly we dated for quite some time before that happened, and the issue at that time was, well, until this is a serious relationship, there's really no need for you to meet my daughter. And of course, we know that happens on both sides, but is it different when you're a single father? Because, I think both sides would be looking for, relationships.
But anyways, Jackie, you know what it is? It's kind of interesting. That's a very loaded question. But I think it really depends upon the values of that man, his values. And what I've been seeing is that, now I'm not talking about the 2.6 million men, I'm about the other ones. To the other ones, it don't matter because he's trying to get somebody in to take those 3,000 steps.
Right.
Are you with me? He's trying to get somebody in to help him out.
Right. I need somebody to raise these kids.
Right. Talking about the color purple. But no, the point is that the rationale for it is different. The woman may be looking for somebody for her to balance her.
Yeah.
The male saying, I'm not talking about all males, but the ones who are not part of 2.6 million. Right. They saying, I'm looking for some mamas for these children because I can't braid no hair. I ain't cooking McDonald's every day. So,
Right. But is it, here's the flip side. Is it harder for them to get dates? Because a woman is going to say, well, maybe you just want me because you need somebody to help with your kids. Is it harder for a single man? Is that something you experienced? Did you have a difficult time dating because maybe women were hesitant because you did already have a child?
No personal expression, but women were seen as children, especially a girl, would seem to be a chick magnet.
A chick magnet. Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
So he said it helped him.
Wait a minute. So he's saying that he used a children like a puppy. Go to the park and they say, "Oh, it's a beautiful puppy." So
you're saying when you were out with your daughter, women were more attractive.
Right.
Okay, well, good, because I'm thinking
Interesting.
just the opposite.
That is interesting. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, I tell
Yeah.
you, I see where Faithful Father went, and he always I know he's trying to go to the Bible on us. He says that men need a helpmate. And I hear some women
Uh-oh.
say, some women say, women do too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So lots of issues. I have another one for you.
Okay.
One of the big issues with women raising children alone is self-care, making
Mhm.
time for themselves, caring for themselves. Do we encourage single fathers to go to the spa and get a
Well,
massage?
I guess we have to have them identify what is their self care, and to me, it's whatever they get comfort from. And the answer is they can go wherever it takes. Now, some may say, I'm going to the bar. Are you with me? That's my self-help. Or I'm going to a football game, or I'm going to a sporting event. You know, whatever it is that brings comfort and relaxation to that individual, they
Mm-hmm.
should do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key is what you're talking about is, oh, am I so macho? I'm so strong. I ain't got to think about me. The answer is no. You need some time to yourself. And Jackie, the resources that are
Did
on,
Did you do that as a single dad?
I did not.
Right. I didn't
I'll
think
tell you what
so.
happened. I put my life on hold until they became young adults.
Right. And I think that happens a lot.
Now, I
So,
adopted when they were teens. So like they were like 14, 15. So from
mhm.
the time I started the adoption, I put my life on hold. I didn't do no dating. I really didn't do anything that they could recall or I can recall. It was
Mhm.
so busy with
Let's
three
focus on
sons
them. Right.
and trying to work and trying to make, trying to take care of them. And they had busy schedules. They were athletes playing football, and all this other stuff. So I didn't have time to do anything else. And by nine
Okay.
o'clock, guess what? The
What?
lights were out in the house.
Right. Which is good.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
But
these are some other issues. I really wish we had some other single dads on. Is there anything else you would like to share about your experience, you know, of being a single dad on a scale of 1 to 10, with, a 1 being that it was exhausting and very challenging, and 10 being that it was, very positive and exhilarating experience. How would you rate being a single father? I mean,
Five, five. I mean, the salesperson would say five.
okay. He said we're right there at a 5. So, had its challenges and had its blessings.
well, I want to tell you that I didn't do any self-care when I was raising them, but I'm doing a whole lot right now. I go and get the pedicure, manicure every 2 weeks. And that it just helps me. But I want to sort of like move to um, making these single dads human if they're visiting us, making them human and have
Okay.
them understand that the pressure they have, they're placing it upon themselves. And they should not strive for perfection in raising
Okay.
children.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to learn that children have minds and you can't just order them around because you're the parent and you're the dad. And we have to also make sure our children are getting these self-guilt trips. Like, you ought to be thankful I got you. You know, you know, you, you know,
Okay.
you could have been with your
That might
mama.
apply in all
Right,
households.
right. So I think as faithful fathers, so we have to kind of like relax with this. And we have to also get a hold of our own lives. We got to get a hold of our own lives.
Yeah,
And
those are
as
some
he
really good
said,
points.
it's hard to just be a man, but also you're now being one for somebody else. And those children are looking at you, and they're looking at you as models, and they're looking at you as safety. So, but Jackie, I know the situation where there was a single dad, and his thing was that my kids won't see me do anything, but then he waited till the kids go to sleep, then he would go out, and I'm saying that's dangerous. And you go out. I mean, you didn't
Mm,
say I have guests there. You said, they're all asleep. The house is locked up. Got alarm. I got cameras. So then he
right,
goes out and do his thing. And I'm saying I don't recommend that because
right,
I'll tell you, when you think children are asleep,
right.
they're
They're
not.
really not.
They're not.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Daddy's Little Girls, which is about a single father raising 3 daughters, and many of the challenges, one which you just mentioned, actually left the children there, not to go out, but to work.
Hmm.
And, didn't want to not take them when he had to take them, but then had to go, left them there because he had to work. So all kind of challenges that confront them.
But I think that men have the same challenges, single fathers, the same challenge that women have. We just don't, we process them differently. We have the same challenges women have, except we process them differently. And so the whole point is that we have to have comfort and know our weaknesses, and know our strengths also, but also get help with our weaknesses and be willing to listen. Be willing to listen to our children and be willing to listen to those who are trying to help us. Because no one is putting you down. People are really trying to lift you
Lift you
up.
up.
Lift you up.
And
You know,
and one final thought, because I know our clock is ticking, which I think is important in this conversation. Very often in a single household with women, we have discussed on this very show what children are missing in the absence of a father.
mhm.
In a single household with dads, are children missing things in the absence of a mother?
Most certainly. That is a great comment. And the issue is that we should find female models to do some things for our children, because at the end of the day, just like a woman can't be a man raising a boy, a man cannot be a woman trying to raise a daughter. There's some sensitivities that some of us just don't have. So the whole point is that we have to get people,
That
really,
village. You have to have that village.
we got to have people. And I ain't talking about just grandma, because I'm not talking about telling the girl just keep 10 cents in your pocket. No, I ain't talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about making sure we talk about values and what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a girl. Are you with me? Men can't teach that. We can only teach it from our perspective.
Right.
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 So that is another challenge we have to be willing to. But also with this male culture, we got to stop thinking that every woman that helps us, we got to sleep with them.
And when you just said male culture, the thought that came to my mind, what would happen if we actually did raise our sons to be fathers the way we raise
Wow.
our daughters to be mothers?
You know, it's amazing. The research, there was some research on that, and was saying that if we talked about that to our children, people would look at us like we're crazy.
Wow.
But the research said that we should be doing that, because when you start teaching parenting, you're teaching all the skills that one needs to be human.
Right.
Teaching
And not
all,
to mention, Dr. Miles, very often when young men have challenges in school or in life,
mhm,
it's often said to be because of a lack of, and then we start calling it a Mars Venus thing,
right,
that emotional connection, or I don't want to say empathy, but just an understanding of the other side. But let's face it, we
right,
kind of raise them that way.
yeah,
Because while they're coming up, we say, oh, that's okay. We don't expect you. You don't expect to see a young man cry. I
right.
think that's a really big issue in society.
I don't know where they got that from. But then,
Society.
but the same person who says I don't expect to see them cry want to ask the question, why you ain't sensitive?
Right. Right. Why aren't you sensitive?
Because you
And why
created
aren't you
this.
raising your kids?
You created this.
Right.
Well, I think this has been an awesome discussion tonight. I love it. But I like that we're putting out there, we're changing sort of the narrative. And the narrative is there are responsible men that are raising their children and doing a great job at it. And not only there are some men, but there are 2.6 million men that are doing this. There are
Mm-hmm.
2.6 million men. And Jackie, I had some data on Black men. And the reason I had that data was because there is a perception that especially Black men do not raise their children. And the data says that there are about over 400,000 families with a single father in the United States. Is it the right one?
Black families. Right.
Black families, yeah. And it shows that, that's it. So my point is that I want to sort of like distill this myth that people of color men ain't no good. I want to distill the fact, distill the myth that there are no men who are fathers. And I want to distill the myth that men are incapable of taking care of children. I want to distill the myth that men don't have the caring and the necessary tools to raise children. So we're giving you a lot of information tonight to share with you that, guess what? Men do have it. And I simply want to applaud. I want you to join me in applauding, not that they should get a prize for it, but applauding those men who see the importance
Right.
of them protecting their children and raising their children at
And,
all
and
costs.
and I'll tell you, Dr. Miles, I don't mind saying maybe they do, get a prize, because it is still unusual. It is
Mhm.
important, and they are doing what they're supposed to do, but that
Right.
doesn't always happen. And I do want to add this last fact, which we didn't quite get to, that there were, we talked about Black households, but there were actually 6.5 million families with male householders and no spouses in the
Wow.
United States in 2019.
Wow.
Right. So again,
Wow.
the need for support and services is there.
Hey, Jackie, it's always been good being with you. It's been a great, great, great night. I'm very
Likewise.
excited about talking about and uplifting men. Next week, we're talking about single females raising children. Are there too many? Now, this week's
Ooh,
discussion was, are there any men?
right.
The next week's discussion is
Are there
single
too many?
females raising children. Are there too many?
Loaded.
So again, I want to thank you all for really following us and being supporters of the foundation. We appreciate it. And our literature and our marketing, we're saying that you're planting trees that you may never sit under. It's
And if
been
I can,
wonderful.
Dr. Miles, don't forget
Mhm.
to remind them about the grants and the mini grants that we'll be doing in January and our need for that support. It is so important. Matter of fact, perhaps we can start sharing a little bit about those organizations and some of the organizations that may be getting them to encourage people to really support that effort.
You just told them. Great. Support us. Support us don't mean raise your arm up. Support does not mean clicking the like button. The support means clicking the donate button. The
Okay,
donate
Dr.
button.
Miles. Yes,
All right,
we
folks.
were referring to the donate button.
So we'll see you next week. Thank you all so much. We love you. And again, don't forget about our children. Blessings.
Good night.